Hey guys, Kristen Leake here. Welcome to my channel where I talk about coding, design, and anything else you want to talk about. So today I have a special interview with Hudson. He is a fantastic author who writes about like all things code. He has a huge background in computer science and he now writes educational books and creates products for code newbies. And in this interview, we talk a lot about his product Hacking with Swift. And Hacking with Swift is a product that I used at the beginning of this year. I personally am not a huge coding book learner. I've always been a video learner. And Paul's product has been fantastic because he incorporates projects and gives you just enough to create a project and then keep learning more and more. And he makes it so fun and it's easy to read. And anyways, this is not a sponsored video. I was not like paid or asked to do this video at all. I just really love the product and I know it can help you, people who want to be self-taught. Check out this interview, guys, and enjoy it and like this video if you like it. And I was checking out your LinkedIn, just seeing where you're working now. And
I write books full time.
oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, it's great. I've been doing it for what, 17 months now. Yeah, it's very pleasing, very pleasing.
Nice, because yeah, I did see you've written over 20.
Yeah, I've written quite a few now, and there's more coming out. Just released another one just a few days ago, and I'm working on another one immediately. So I get no breaks.
That's awesome because I did notice that after I purchased the Hacking with Swift in December, that you had kind of you changed your website, I believe, and you added some more products as well, like the Watch OS.
Yeah, so there's WatchOS and tvOS and macOS and server-side Swift and so forth. So there's lots and lots of Swift books now, and more coming, I can promise.
Cool. Did you start out doing iOS? Like, what was your coding journey like?
Well, I'm one of those hideous people who started coding when they were young. So it was really linear for me, from like, I don't know, 12 years old, I started reading MS-DOS manuals and everything. It was pretty grim. And then I did a computing science degree from 18 to 21,
Mm-hmm.
and then got a computing science job out of university. And then when I was 23, I made a major departure and quit that job and became a journalist. So I spent 8 years doing magazine journalism for computer. It's still computer-related stuff. It was a Linux magazine,
Okay.
so very serious, very dry, very technical stuff. But it was 8 years of designing covers and writing articles and commissioning others and so forth. And I was the editor of the magazine, so it was a blast. And in that period, helpfully, my horizons kind of expanded a little bit. I did a second degree in literature and then a master's degree in classical studies, so Latin and Greek stuff.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of expanded my horizons while I had some time, and then ultimately the company I was working for decided they wanted to start doing iOS apps to
Mm-hmm.
make this. They could see there's money there somewhere, so I wanted to get some money out of the market. So they went to sort of the geekiest. Sorry,
The company you were writing for?
it's yeah. So they're a very large magazine company. So they hire a lot of journalists full time to write magazines and stuff, similar stuff. And they said, "Listen, we want to make iOS apps." What happened was it was just before, about a year before Newsstand launched. Do you remember Newsstand? Remember Newsstand for iOS?
Oh,
It was
yeah, I remember.
yeah, that thing. Yeah, that thing no one uses anymore. Yeah, yeah. They wanted to get magazines on iPad effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So they went to the geekiest person in the company, which was me. And said, "Listen, we know you've made some iOS apps in your spare time. This is like 2010. You made some apps already. Do you want to switch back to IT and hire a team up to make some apps?" So we did. I switched. I ran a team of 15 or so making newsstand apps. We made a lot of money. Newsstand was very, very profitable for the company. We made something like $30 million in over the years, which is for a small company, it's very good.
Mm-hmm.
And we licensed it out to other companies like Fender used it, UBS used it, and so forth. Quite a few companies used it, which is great. And it was a blast. I enjoyed it very much, but I had a lot of spare time in my hands because ultimately I wasn't going anywhere. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of came home and started writing a book about Swift and iOS and so forth. been doing it for 6 years, 7 years by that point. I wrote the book, and it proved to be very popular. So I kind of swerved back into writing again. And then I thought, this is so much fun, I'll do it full time. So here I am working full time on Swift books. So that's my life story condensed into just a few minutes for you.
That's amazing. And you know what I find really interesting is how you kind of made the shift from strictly computer science into writing and literature. And a lot of people who watch my YouTube videos, they did the complete opposite, to where they're trying to get out of what they're doing today and get into computer science.
The difference is, I think, and this might sound terribly insulting, but it's not meant to be, when you have a job in computer science or a trainee in computer science, you're able to do it, right? Mm-hmm. You can get jobs relatively easily that pay quite well, because computer science, coding generally pays quite well.
Right.
And some areas like iOS or say databases pay very well. Whereas if you're an English major, it's a little bit harder to find a job. It's kind of the joke, what will you do when you graduate? I'll make cappuccinos or something like that, right? Whereas I kind of did literature for fun. I had no reason to do a second degree. I had no reason to do a degree. My MA thesis was on Aristophanes' Greek play Lysistrata. Really unusual. I didn't have to do that. I chose to do it for fun, which sounds awful. It was hilarious and fun, right? All this work. But if that was my first qualification, applying that in a job would be hard, because there's not many roles that accept those kinds of people. So in some respects, I kind of got the money spinning career foundation organized first. And once I was able to make money from that, I could do other things for pleasure. And I promise you, studying literature for pleasure is just so much fun. It was really a rewarding experience. So I'm glad I did it. And of course, it's paying off now with my writing work too.
Oh, definitely. It's, the way it just tied in together. And I love your writing style, by the way.
Thank you.
I get very nervous when it comes to reading about coding. Like, I had a friend loan me the book Eloquent JavaScript, and I could barely finish the chapter.
Must have been a very short book.
Oh,
Must have been a very eloquent JavaScript.
I wonder, do I have it? Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I don't have it with me right now. But, yeah, I mean, it is kind of thin, but a lot to it today, as you know, since you read about React and everything.
It's not natural. You have to learn to write stuff. And I was very bad at it. The company I worked for trained me very hard. People ask me, how do you write books so quickly? And the answer isn't, I'm just a naturally fast writer. It's literally years and years and years of being trained to do it. So Linux Format, the magazine I worked for, we write very long, very dense articles on very dry topics, right? And one of the training courses I had to do was how to write product reviews, how to review a product, right? So I went to this training course, and it was like, a day-long course. And on the course with me was some people from games magazines, like Games Radar and similar, who make game reviews, right? So I was coming from here's how you review a server from IBM to do Linux, whatever. And they're coming from, here's World of Warcraft. And we were set a task in the afternoon. We'd been trained all day, set a task. The task was, here are 8 bottles of water, different kinds of Evian or whatever, brands of water. Write a 200-word review of all 8, a group test of 8 things. And I thought, crikey, that's going to be 25 words per bottle of water. I know 4,000 words, just one little small thing, right? A very long, dry magazine. So I had a go at doing this, and it was absolutely terrible. I kind of almost like Morse code level of writing to get that level of detail, 25 words of detail. Whereas the games person, they threw away 4 bottles and then said, this one's the best. Here's 100 words why that's the best. These other 3 are interesting. Here's 30 words each of why it's interesting. And that approach really inspired me. We don't have to go into depth on everything. Just pick the bits that really matter, focus on those, and say, hey, you now have a cognitive framework you can build upon. You can go and Google yourself later on if you want to, but I've told you what to look for and what's cool about the best stuff. The rest, just trust me, it's junk. And that actually applies very well to hacking with Swift. And I kind of put in the title, you're hacking with it, having fun with it, playing around with it. It's not a computing science degree on Swift. It's just, let's make some fun things with Swift and have an enjoyable time learning.
Yeah, it's definitely what I noticed about it, because there are many parts where you'd give a very basic definition or understanding and say there's more to this, but we'll touch on that, in the next few chapters.
Yeah.
And that was very helpful because what I've noticed with a lot of code newbies is we want to learn everything, and that just makes it very overwhelming and oftentimes makes us not want to continue to pursue it.
Yeah, I think the term that it's technically, if you want to get into the really tedious philosophy, it's called Wittgenstein's ladder. And the principle is that as you put your first step on a ladder, climbing your way up, you start something very simple and you build on it and build on it and build on it and build on it to get higher and higher and higher. And when you're on like rung 8, you might learn the thing you learned in rung 2 was actually wrong. But it helped you get to rung 3 and get to rung 4 and get to rung 5. You wouldn't have got there if you sort of got into extreme detail straight away. With computer science, particularly if we talked about strong and weak in Swift memory ownership stuff, you can like a toddler, 3-year-old child, you can go why, and end up with it's just 1s and 0s. It's just electricity running through electricity for you eventually. And you've got to stop that and say, listen, this is enough for knowledge for now. You'll get it. It'll make more sense a little bit later. Just trust me. Mm-hmm. That's hard to do. You kind of suspending belief a little bit, but
yes,
it works so far.
But what's great is the way you have it to where you learn a little bit and then you dive into the project afterwards.
Yeah, so I try and keep it contextual, and that is a challenge. Now I've got so many books. I've got 50 projects or 60 projects by now, and it won't surprise you to learn I'll be announcing a new book in a couple of weeks' time with the Apple conference, and I'll have to think of new projects to have in there that are interesting and unique and not done before, and cover something that's new and applicable to whatever Apple announces. So I am constantly on the lookout for good project ideas.
And when is the Apple conference? Is that in the UK or is that?
No, it's WWDC, which is Apple's main developer conference. It's just
okay.
I think like 20 days now.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, well, it's good because they're going to announce Swift 4, they'll announce iOS 11 presumably, they'll announce tvOS 11, they'll announce watchOS 4, they'll announce macOS somewhere else in California, they'll announce a number of products back to back, and it means people like me, a lot of work for me to update all my books. All my books come with a lifetime guarantee for Swift. When Swift changes, I'll update the book for free, so you never have your learning out of date. And that means about 4 to 5 months of work for me. This is the quiet time. May's great. I like May. May's really relaxing and peaceful.
Good. And you have lots of bonuses too, so I think that keeps you busy. Or do the bonuses come as there are new releases?
The Frequent Flyer Club stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, so I do that whenever I have time. So I did a bunch of them originally because there's so many books. Mm-hmm. One since then for watchOS, I have to do one soon, maybe tomorrow for tvOS. The thing is, I kind of assumed naively, because to get the tvOS bonus, you have to have bought all 9 books, all 10 books, all the books, right? And I thought, no one's bought all the books. And of course, one person emails and says, I've bought all the books. Where's my frequent flyer? I'm like, no. I should be happy. Thank you very much for your support. Mm-hmm. I just hadn't realized the Venn diagram was so tightly knit around people. Mm-hmm. So I better hurry up and do the frequent flyer stuff.
Well, it's greatly appreciated.
Everyone likes free stuff.
Yep. Have you noticed any common problems that beginners have with learning?
Oh yeah, optionals. No one gets optionals first, and I do a lot of live teaching. I do a class full of people, and you can see on their face this look of I don't get this, and I believe everyone else does get it, and I don't dare ask the questions. I look stupid. So I say to people again and again and again, trust me, optionals are really hard. It's not you. It's just Swift being hard. No one gets optionals, whether it's implicitly unwrapped or force unwrapping them or regular optionals or just regular things. They are just hard. And I say it beforehand, I say it during, I say it after, because it helps people, I hope, just calm down a little bit and say, I'm not being slow. It is just difficult, and you will get it. So optionals particularly are a real pain point for Swift developers, I think.
I wonder if that's what I was dealing with. I was working on it December to February-ish, with your book, and I remember there was a section that was confusing. It may have been optionals, and you had several different explanations of it. You said if you don't understand this
That's the
explanation, pick
one.
out this.
Try this. Yeah,
That's the one.
that's the one. Yeah, I know. Because it's complicated. I explain it in 3 different ways, saying, listen, if it makes sense, move on. If it doesn't, just carry on reading. I'll try again and try again and
And
try
if it
again.
still doesn't, it'll come to
Yeah,
you eventually.
yeah, basically, yeah. Because it's just letting it soak in a little bit. I always tell people the way most folks learn HTML or JavaScript is by just going to view source in their web browser and just poking around and stealing stuff and pasting it in their website and trying it out, right? That's how most of us learn coding.
Yep.
And it's the same way little kids learn to speak. No one sits down with a 3-year-old and does grammar lessons. They just listen to the parents speaking again and again and again. It soaks in slowly. And that's the way you really get complex things like optionals.
Yeah. So just seeing it, just seeing it over and over, pretty much.
Yeah, basically, yeah. There's 39 projects in Hacking with Swift. That's a long time to let them sink in. Intentionally a long time, it's a good chance to let it soak in.
That's very helpful to know, because that just reminded me of when I was learning Ruby on Rails, and I was having trouble. Are you familiar with Ruby on Rails with MVC?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
You obviously know more than I do. But I had trouble understanding models. And by the time I finished the 8-week course, I watched another YouTube tutorial, and it just hit me. And I just thought, how do I know this when before I was about to hit bang my head against the wall trying to understand it.
Boom. Progress.
Yeah. It's amazing how the brain can learn that way. And a lot of times we don't trust ourselves. So do you have any advice for someone who is learning, is teaching themselves through the material that you're providing and online materials and trying to get a job?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I obviously make a number of books, and Hacking with Swift is very good to get you started with making projects. It's designed to give you effectively a lightning fast tour of iOS while also doing some Swift. So you kind of learn Swift while learning iOS, which means by the end of it, you've met UI table view, UI view controller, UI collection view for graphics, image. You've met Sprite Kit. You've met loads of things along the way. You haven't met in depth all the way, but you've met a variety of things. You kind of know how things fit together very thoroughly. But that's only the beginning. There are 2 books particularly I wrote afterwards that are very useful to people who really want to get a job in Swift.
Okay.
One is Pro Swift, which is specifically a language book. It's just Swift. There's no iOS, no macOS, no tvOS, no watchOS. Just Swift. And by the end of that book, it comes with like 6 hours of videos. You learn so much about the way Swift is built, why it's built that way. And I show examples of some code that blows people's brains at first. Just like 3 lines of code from the Swift standard library, which brings in things like auto closures and ternary and rethrows and short circuit evaluation, all in one 3-line of code. It's really dense and brilliant. But then I walk them through, spend a few hours of saying, here's what this bit does, here's how this bit works, isn't this clever? So they can kind of see it put together as a jigsaw, and then see the whole thing putting back together again. Say, here's that code again. Now you can read what it does and why it's so clever. And it's like, all right, I get that now. That's really clever. So it's a book about teaching you how Swift works and how to write better Swift, which is very popular. That's my favorite book I ever wrote. The other book is called Swift Coding Challenges, and it's 64 coding challenges in Swift. And they're all graded, so it's like easy, medium, hard, and it's like sectionalized into like strings or arrays or algorithms, for example. And it's simple things like, how do you check if a string's a palindrome? And it will give you the question, how do this thing, as if you're whiteboarding an interview, for example.
Okay.
Then it'll give you sort of 3 to 8 hints. If you get stuck, try this, consider this, try this. And then it gives you a fully worked solution. So it'll break down what the problem really means behind the scenes, and then walk you through an example solution. And there's sometimes where I sort of give 6 different solutions. You could do this way or this way or this way or this way. And I explain why one's better, why one's easier to remember, why one's faster.
That is so great.
Well, obviously I think so because I wrote the
Oh
book,
my
right?
gosh.
But it means that you can kind of see, you can have a go at the thing. And I say again and again in the book is, if you solve the challenge completely, I don't care if it was messy, I don't care if it was slow. If you're in an interview situation and you've solved the challenge, you've done brilliantly, because it's very hard to do that when you're under pressure and there's people staring at you, want to know the answer to your question. Right? It's very difficult. So the book's about preparing you for interviews with these kinds of technical questions. So I recommend the book. So when people buy my Power Pack bundle, which gives you the first 6 books, they get Pro Swift and Hacking with Swift and Coding Challenges and 3 more to give them a really good firm grounding. And the reading order, it comes with like a list of reading orders. The reading order, if you want a job now, is Hacking with Swift, Pro Swift, Coding Challenges, because it gives you a really lightning fast grounding in iOS and a deeper look at Swift. So you really feel like you own the Swift language. And then it's like, now you feel good, let's do some challenges together and work it through with some example solutions and so forth.
And what about your Objective-C course?
Yeah, that's in the Power Pack as well.
Okay.
And that's, again, if you want to work in a company, you're going to find Objective-C everywhere. It's still very, very widely used today amongst companies, because if you've got 100,000 lines of source code, you say, listen, boss, I want to rewrite this entire thing in Swift. It'll look the same to end users, but it'll take 6 months and 6 engineers. Is that okay? That you're going to get a bad no? Particularly because, of course, rewriting stuff, even though you're sort of doing a line-by-line conversion, there'll be bugs all over the place. So it's a very difficult sell. So any serious code base that's been pre-Swift is still Objective-C, realistically.
Okay. So would you, for someone who is trying to decide what to learn first, whether it's Swift or Objective-C, would you say?
I would recommend Swift still.
Swift first? Okay.
But first, but not only. That's the difference. So you want to, I think Swift is a more enjoyable language to learn. It makes more sense. Objective-C, I remember staring at it and saying, UI table view, table view, table view, table view, table view, table view. It's like being John Malkovich to film. It's a really weird language for its repetition. And Swift gets rid of a lot of that fluff and is more natural to people, I think. And once you get Swift, moving to Objective-C isn't quite so painful. You can kind of see the connecting lines. I would say that, however, folks have kind of missed the boat. If you'd learned Swift before Swift 3 came out, it was easier to move to Objective-C from there. Whereas now Swift 3's come out with the new method naming and so forth, it is harder to move to Objective-C.
Oh, I haven't seen Swift 3.
Yeah, it's different. So all the method names are shorter. I think you may have done. If you start in December, you should only know Swift 3.
Okay. Because I know when I got it, it was right in between when people were transitioning.
Okay.
And your course was one of the few that was actually updated.
Yeah, so that means you only know Swift 3.
Okay.
Swift 2. Well, yeah, but it means if you want to learn Objective-C, you find things a little bit alien.
Yeah, true.
Literally, the method names were identical in Swift and Objective-C, whereas now they're not. They're all shorter and cleverer and stuff in Swift 3. They're better, big improvement, but they were identical before. You could literally see the parallels. Swift, Objective-C, the same.
Okay.
Fantastic. And Swift 4 is due out in like 3 weeks, right? It's cool.
Are you, what are some things you're looking forward to at the Apple conference in DC?
All sorts of things. Obviously, we'll get iOS 11. Or maybe not. I mean, there's some talk about this will be the year they finally unify macOS and iOS. I'm expecting not. I'm hoping not, because that means an extraordinary amount of work for me. I'm expecting iOS 11, which would be great, because that's the biggest driver for Apple sales. I'm hoping some sort of hints in there of what we'll see in the new iPhone, because they have to announce some new APIs at some point. Historically, they've waited till September. They sort of snuck them at the last minute, like the touch bar stuff for the macOS was sort of snuck into a half-point release for macOS, which is a shame. They're going to do another macOS release, macOS Stanford or something else, somewhere other place in California, right?
Yes.
Which I expect will make it closer to iOS again. Every release of macOS for the last sort of 6 versions, it's sort of edged closer to macOS. There's things like NS View Controller exists now, which didn't used to exist. That's increasingly good. I'm hopeful that tvOS will see some love, because tvOS is really lacking in places.
I'm not really familiar with that.
Oh, I've got a great book on it. You should. It's things like you can't store data on your tvOS device, and it's like,
Oh,
why not? It's a big device. You can get, when you had 8 gig iPhones, you could store data on the iPhone. The smallest Apple TV is 32 gig. Let me store some files, please. And the answer is no, you can't. You can't store files. That's naughty. So I hope they relax that. They send me they relax the watchOS. That'd be good. And I guess Xcode 9 is going to ship as well with some new stuff.
nice.
Yeah. The Swift 4 is already available now. You can try it out, and that's cool. Making a number of nice improvements.
How do you stay up to date with all
Vast amounts of reading. Vast amounts of reading. It takes me about 2 hours in the morning to get moving because I'm reading so much.
So you spend most of your time reading and writing, and I guess learning what's new and coming out.
I spend most of my time chasing my 2 kids, but after they're out of the equation, then yes, presumably it's reading and writing and stuff.
Okay, excellent. Because I think that's also a challenge, especially for beginners. There's so much changing, and how to learn, and then also stay up to date with the new things that are happening.
I think that I get some very worrying emails from beginners, and they say things like, "I'm just learning Swift, and I've just installed the Xcode 8.3 beta, and it isn't working." And my response is, "What are you doing? Why are you installing beta Xcode nonsense if you're just learning? You are making problems for yourself. Back up, install the stable version, pick out a dusty book that does the stable stuff, and use that. Don't try and break things with the very, very latest, newest stuff, because you will not get anywhere. If you are trying out iOS 11 in the next 3 months, it will shift under your feet. Things will break and change all the time. Do not do it unless you know what you're doing, because it's a wrong way to learn."
Okay. So pretty much, if you're new to Swift, or in Xcode, don't download or try to learn the newest.
There's really no point.
Okay.
Because ultimately, the iOS 11, I presume it comes out in June, will be announced in June, will ship in September sometime, usually, and it'll be around about January before people are using it en masse. Enough to the point where you can say, I'll ship an app in this and only iOS 11, and I'll happily accept not having iOS 10 or iOS 9 customers. You generally want to have some level of backwards compatibility. Apple recommends the current one -1, so it'd be 10 and 9 right now, for 11 and 10, because that way you're getting 95% of users. In September when it ships, it'll be 0% of users. Do you really want your app to be used by 0% of users? Probably not. The exception, of course, will be if you make an iOS 11 specific app. I want to use this new thing that was announced. Like in 10, it was iMessage apps, or in 9, it was Safari extensions and so forth. Right. So there's always new things coming out that you want to use.
Okay, yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, just stay focused. Don't get distracted by the shiny, really. If you're emailing me Swift 4 questions and you're a beginner and it's not shipped, you're doing it wrong. Back up. Stick with the easy stuff first. Get that basics mastered, because Swift 4 is very cool. It's just additive. It just adds new things to Swift 3. Everything Swift 3 still applies to Swift 4.
Okay. Thank you so much. What's the best way for anyone to reach out to you to ask a question? Is it Twitter or email?
Yeah, Twitter. I do respond to Twitter all the time. I'm TwoStraws, TWO Straws on Twitter. You can email me. I am paul@hackingwithswift.com. And I do answer questions from people all the time who haven't bought the book. I'm reading the online version. That's fine. I'll answer your questions and I'll help you out. I'm also on Reddit quite a lot too, on r/Swift, if you want to pop by there.
Definitely. And I will link everything in the description box in the video below. And
cool.
Paul, it's been so much fun talking to you. Thank you again for your time.
You're most welcome.
Have a great day.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.